Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Let's talk. Week 1, Buffalo versus Ravens, has a lot of storylines. And one of the biggest storylines, maybe not for just this season, but for NFL history, is the trajectory that Derrick Henry is on. Derrick Henry has the opportunity in Week 1 to make some history. As he sits at 11,423 yards, this week alone, if he just gets 100 rushing yards, he will be able to surpass Steven Jackson, Thurman Thomas, and also Fred Taylor. And you have to know a little bit of NFL history. If you're not at least 35 or you study the NFL, specifically the running back position, you may not recognize these names. Steven Jackson was a guy who made his name playing for, I believe at that time it was the LA Rams. He played for several teams, but he was most notably identified with the Rams. When you think about a guy like a Thurman Thomas, he was kind of the engine for the Buffalo Bills of the 1990s, that Buffalo Bills team that made 4 straight Super Bowls. Although they lost them all, Thurman Thomas was still the engine. A guy, he wasn't super huge, right, like a Derrick Henry, but he ran with power, speed, and great vision. And a guy that I would always pick when I was playing old school Tecmo Bowl. Some of you don't remember Tecmo Bowl. Again, you got to be at least 35, maybe even 30. You can remember Tecmo Bowl. But he was a guy that I would love to play with. I wasn't a fan of the Bills, but Thurman Thomas, if he was going to run the ball, was one of those guys. And then Fred Taylor, a guy who, again, is identified with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that was pretty solid in Fred Taylor's day. And he was a guy also who ran with some power, a bigger guy, again, not Derrick Henry size, but a guy who ran with power, good vision. And if he was on the field, right, the Jacksonville Jaguars had an opportunity to win that game. It was when the Jacksonville Jaguars were a good team, right? That's not me banging on them now, but that's what you remember Fred Taylor for in that Jacksonville Jaguars era. And so with 100 yards, Derrick Henry will eclipse all 3 of these guys, moving from the all-time rushing spot of 19. He will go past 18, 17, and 16 and push those guys down. Derrick Henry has a real opportunity this year, I believe, to get into the top 10. I would have to go back and check those numbers, but I think that is fitting, right? Because Derrick Henry is a guy who the Baltimore Ravens should have drafted in his draft class. Right? Derrick Henry fell out of the first round into the second round. The Baltimore Ravens had a couple of different opportunities to draft him. They didn't pull the trigger, and he ended up in Tennessee. And sometimes Derrick Henry gets overlooked as one of the great backs in the NFL history. We identify guys like Emmitt Smith, got to be older. We identify guys like Eric Dickerson, Marcus Allen, Adrian Peterson. And my personal favorite running back of all time is Barry Sanders. And so he gets overlooked because he's not classified in that category. But I think this year and possibly next season, he could begin to get some of that all-time running back notoriety as he continues to climb. 11,423 yards is a great number. But if he's able to get into that top 15, top 14, top 13 this season and help the Baltimore Ravens get that chip, I think he now springboards into that elite of elite class. And part of the reason why I believe Derrick Henry has gotten overlooked, unless you're watching his workout videos and things like that, is because Tennessee's heyday was those days of Eddie George, Steve McNair, Samari Rolle, those kind of guys, those guys who headed that team when they were clashing against the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry came at a time where there wasn't great quarterback play until they grabbed Ryan Tannehill, and then they started having some success. And so I think he kind of falls below the radar, but I think on a big stage with the Baltimore Ravens, where I think he will get roughly 5,500 yards in a Baltimore Ravens uniform, I think that he will start getting the notoriety as he is part of a winning team. Or let me say more notoriety, more acclaim, more validation for being one of the greats, as you can see him more big time television as he's powering this Baltimore Ravens running game. And so we're going to keep track of what Derrick Henry does this season. We're going to do his yards, we're going to do his touchdowns, and we're going to be discussing the climb through history. So let me know what you guys want me to know about Derrick Henry. Do you think he's already one of the all-time greats? Or do you think he has been undervalued because of where he was in Tennessee? I'm your guy Boulanger, and until next time, I'm out.